You're live with Down the Wire Sports Talk podcast. My name is Tanner Bell. I'm the host of Down the Wire Sports Talk, presented by Trifecta Network. That is trifectasportsnetwork.com. Alongside me today as a guest is Justin Doyle. Justin, say hello to the people.
Hello.
So we got a lot to talk about today, and most importantly, we're going to talk about the New England Patriots and their fifth Super Bowl under the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick regime. Their seventh Super Bowl appearance in that time. They beat the Atlanta Falcons 31-28 on Sunday in Super Bowl 51. And 25 points. They came back. They tied the football game, forced the first overtime in Super Bowl history to defeat the Atlanta Falcons. They scored a touchdown on the first overtime possession. Tom Brady was fantastic at the end. It was pretty bad in the first half. It was a tale of two games for Tom, but when it mattered, he was accurate and had a great game. James White had a fantastic game too, 2 rushing touchdowns and 1 receiving touchdown, which is actually also a record. And he went to Disney World, and James White is also going to get the MVP car. Despite Tom Brady winning the MVP, Brady's going to give it to James White, just like he did in 2014 when he won the MVP as well. And he gave the Colorado truck to Malcolm Butler. So it was Brady's 4th MVP in a Super Bowl, and he gave away half the cars. So. And then the other Super Bowl that he didn't win the MVP was the Deion Branch. Deion Branch, I think, won a Cadillac or something like that. So the game was intense. There's a lot of moments we can talk about, including the Julian Edelman catch, talk about James White, the defense, Julio Jones, the point differential, the comeback. Justin, what was your favorite moment from that game?
Probably I'd say the Dante Hightower strip sack. I mean, that was like the climax, turning point, whatever adjective you want to use. That was the part where you knew that whole, maybe they have a chance to not get blown out. Like when that happened, I thought, oh, they're not going to get blown out. I still wasn't thinking win, but I was thinking like going to make it close. So that's probably the best moment for me.
To me, it's tough to pick a particular moment. I never thought they were down and out. The one time where I was like, this isn't their year is when Julio Jones went on top of Eric Rowe and picked the ball up. It was a perfect throw from Matt Ryan. Perfect catch, 2 feet in bounds. Perfect defense on him, too. Everything was perfect about it. I thought that was it right there. In my opinion, like that was when I was kind of not confident about their comeback. But for most of the game, even when they were down, I was confident that the team was going to be able to come back. I never felt they were out of it. Maybe that was because I didn't really think highly of the Atlanta Falcons going into the game. But you knew Brady was going to figure it out. You knew something was going to happen. And that Julian Edelman catch, the catch where the ball wasn't really thrown that well by Brady, it was tipped up by the defender, and Julian Edelman somehow comes up with that catch. And you'll ever see. I mean, it was kind of just the determination, the never quitting, never giving up, and determining to get that ball. And it didn't touch the ground. I think that was probably the moment I'll always remember from that game, is that catch right there. And the 5th Super Bowl for Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, the Kraft ownership group. It was a big game and a big day. And people counted them all out again. I don't know if you saw on Twitter. There was people like Max Kellerman for First Take of ESPN. He always says Brady's going to fall off a cliff. And he tweeted cliff during the game. Then he actually, after the game, when people were like, oh, well, you were wrong, he said, well, there's going to be a cliff eventually. No shit, Sherlock. That's a hot take. But honestly, though, like people counted him out again. People counted out Tom Brady. They counted out the New England Patriots. And this is a team full of players like Julian Edelman, like Danny Amendola, Chris Hogan, Tom Brady, Malcolm Butler. These are players who weren't thought highly of. Guys who aren't first-round draft picks. They're not second-round draft picks. People counted them out before, and they've made careers. They've won Super Bowls based on that fact. You count them out, and everyone counted them out in that game. They didn't, a 0.4% chance to win that Super Bowl with 4 minutes to go or something like that. And they came back and won. Everyone counted them out, and they came back, and Tom Brady said, no, we're going to fucking do this. And they did it, and they won a Super Bowl. And we're blessed to actually have this kind of success in New England. Um, but there's one team in New England that does not have success. That is a team that decided to spoil the parade, the Patriots Super Bowl parade. That is the Boston Bruins. The Boston Bruins announced Tuesday morning that they were going to fire head coach Claude Julien and promote Bruce Cassidy, the assistant coach. Cassidy was the head coach down in Providence last couple seasons. So they announced it this morning. And then they were like, we're going to have a press conference at 11:30. And what started at 11, Justin, on Tuesday?
The parade for the Patriots
Exactly.
Super Bowl win.
This Super Bowl parade started at 11:30. But before we get to the Bruins, we're going to talk a little bit about the parade. And we were actually both in attendance at the parade. It was snowing. It was raining. We were out towards the Boston Marathon finish line right in front of the Under Armour store with all the top TB12 logos all over the place. So we were there. It started a little late, but it was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool experience. I think, seeing Robert Kraft, seeing Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, Matt Patricia, Josh McDaniels, and a bunch of guys. It was a pretty cool experience to be there and be in person. I mean, it was cold, but I think it was worth it. Justin, what was your favorite moment from the parade?
You can't not say. I'm gonna say when Tom Brady came by. I mean, and then just out of the blue, Jacoby Brissett pops into the picture and he just screaming, "Let's go!" Getting everyone ready. I thought, and at first when I first saw him, I was like, "Who the heck's that guy?" Just because you don't see him often, and you don't. The few times I have seen him, he had his helmet on, so because he was playing. But I'd say Tom Brady coming by, and then the other one was probably actually being able to see Bill Belichick smile in person.
I mean, I saw him smile on that Jimmy Fallon clip last night with Julian Edelman,
Yeah,
but
saw him smile in person.
exactly, yeah, he was smiling, he was happy, and then he ended up doing a speech at the send-off the rally at the end. Um, yeah, Brissett was special. Brissett was pretty special. It was kind of interesting to me because I actually read a quote not too long ago. I think it was Bill Simmons' podcast. He said he was talking to somebody. I can't remember what he was talking about, but they're basically saying the way they might trade Jimmy Garoppolo because they feel such a way about Jacoby Brissett.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that moment that we witnessed at the parade says a lot about his character, about his, he wants to win, he wants to be here. And he was probably one of the most energetic guys at the whole parade was Jacoby Brissett, who didn't, he didn't play. He wasn't even active for the Super Bowl. And I think they feel really highly about this guy. I think potentially they could trade Jimmy Garoppolo just because they have that feeling about Jacoby Brissett. That's something to look forward to in the offseason. Obviously, season just ended, so we're not going to talk about stuff yet. But in the next coming months, coming weeks, we're going to start talking about that on this podcast, talking about Patriots moves, free agents, guys like Martellus Bennett, guys like Dante Hightower. These guys are pending. Might be a trading Jimmy Garoppolo. We'll see what happens. But we're going to talk
a bunch of people today.
Yeah, they did, but it was for future contracts, and it wasn't anything that big. It was 9 players. But you'll start to see bigger names get signed, and they might let some guy go. Rob Ninkovich is an interesting guy where they might not particularly keep, they might part ways with that guy. It'll be interesting. They also have potentially a $3.25 million cap credit give about the Aaron Hernandez thing is still on contract. So they're potentially getting a credit $3.25 million on their cap that they could potentially spend on a guy like Dante Hightower. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. A lot of stuff could change. The cap's always a manipulated thing in the NFL. But we're going to talk about the people that ruined the Patriots parade or tried to ruin the Patriots parade. The Boston Bruins decided to have an 11:30 press conference to talk about Claude Julien's firing. Don Sweeney was there, and Don Sweeney was very didn't take criticism very well. He was kind of speaking in circles. If you read any of his quotes, he wouldn't really specifically say why Claude Julien was fired. He actually kind of made an argument why not to fire Claude Julien. He also said that they're going to be doing interviews with candidates, but the local media is saying that, well, Bruce Cassidy is probably a more permanent option for the team. We got a guy like Ken Hitchcock out there, could potentially be an option for the team. Claude could go to a place like Las Vegas. The Knights are looking for a head coach still. Hitchcock could also go there too. Cassidy could be the option, but Don Sweeney basically didn't take ownership of the move. From what I could tell, I don't think he really wanted to see Claude go. And he kind of took some of the blame on himself, saying, it's my fault for not putting the right team. So it was kind of an interesting press conference where he didn't really blame Claude. He blamed himself for the roster that he provided Claude, which I thought was a very interesting take. And as far as the timing of the decision goes, he said it was the Bruins PR department that decided to announce it this morning. They wanted to bury this news, bury the headline. They ended up pissing a bunch of people off, and it was a failure. And in my mind, I think, Justin, you brought it up to me earlier today, is that they probably told Claude Julien a couple days ago, maybe right after the Toronto game, that, hey, we're going to part ways with you, buddy. Whether or not the players knew that kind of pisses me off. Because now if you're a player, you'd like to have more days with Bruce Cassidy as head coach, maybe change the way you play and all that. Because I think if they told the players, there'd be some kind of leak. So there was a couple days in between. So, Justin, what's your thoughts? Should they have fired Claude Julien? Do you think Don Sweeney is really the guy to blame? What's your thoughts of this whole mess for the Boston Bruins?
Going to start with Don Sweeney, like how you said. I mean, I heard some of it. I read some of the quotes, and like you said, he kind of praised Claude, saying that he's the winningest coach in Bruins history. But that's also because he was here for 10 years. I mean, he's just here forever. I don't have a problem with firing him, but at the time of the firing, I think I said a while ago, you should wait till the end of the season because it would be better. It's easier that way. That way you don't have to just kind of kick Bruce Cassidy into the deep end and be like, oh, hey, 3/4 of the way through the season, you have to, you got to start winning now. And then I saw, I think it was Bergeron and I think Marchand that said that that it wasn't them stopping playing for Claude, that they were very surprised that he went. And they're saying that it's going to be, weird. Not weird, but I don't know what adjective to use to be
different.
Coached by another guy.
It's going to be different for those guys.
It's going to be a new system. They're going to practice a little differently, a little different, forechecking, defense is going to be a little different. So I think the firing was probably more Neely and Jacobs, I'd say. I mean, because they want change, and I think they're thinking about the now, and Sweeney's kind of thinking about the future. I mean, look at all these kids he's been drafting. So I think they're kind of clashing heads with the front office. So I don't know. We'll see.
I think it's interesting to talk about, especially with Cam Neely. I think he should take a lot of the blame for what's going on with the team. He's been there with the Peter Chiarelli. He's been there with Don Sweeney's blunders as well. I think Don Sweeney's done a good job drafting and finding these young players. And I think there's a lot in the system coming up. Whether or not he's going to be here to see these players actually become stars, I'm not sure. I could see it not being so. Cam Neely's been very good at pushing the blame off of himself and onto guys like Claude and Peter Chiarelli. Very good being a scapegoat, but Neely has a lot to blame. I'm not a big fan of Neely anymore. He's kind of tarnishing his reputation, I think, with the organization and the fans. People who liked him and loved him during his playing days might be looking at him right now and be like, you know what, Cam? And I think it's going to be his time soon. I think this is more the organization thinking, you know what, if we make a change now, maybe they can win some hockey games here and maybe push to the playoffs. But the issue is most of the players on this team, especially the veterans who've been here for a while, they've only played under Claude. Some of the guys that brought in, like David Backes and Chara and all those, they played under different coaches and other teams. But the homegrown guys that have been here for a couple of years, the guys like Torrey Krug, Brad Marchand, Bergeron, for the most part, their only coach they've had at the NHL level is Claude Julien. I think the one positive you can see with Bruce Cassidy is he's familiar with the system. He's been here all year, and he's coached a lot of the young guys, especially the guys who come up from province the last couple of years. So there's some familiarity there. It's not like they're going out to go with another coach from a different organization. So there'll be some continuity. I don't think they're going to be able to improve anything. I don't think, I like to say that Claude wasn't getting the most out of his players, but it's kind of the roster that he was dealt. He's getting anything out of it any more than Claude did. I think this team's going to be the same team. I don't see them stepping up. I actually see this team looking at the firing of Claude Julien and basically saying, you know what, season's over. We're packing our bags, going home. It's done. That's it. And it was very much like they did with the Johnny Boychuk trade a couple of years ago, when you felt that team basically give up before the season started because they traded Johnny Boychuk because they got the message. organization doesn't expect us to win now. That was the wrong message at the time, but that's the organization's message that they received. And I think they're done. I mean, I really think that's it. I don't think this team responds well to a move like this. And I think a lot of the veteran players, and a lot of them still respected the hell out of Claude. You saw it from the Marchand, the Bergeron comments. They all respected Claude. The veterans loved him. I think this was the right move now. Move from the offseason, that's fine. But this late in the season, you're not going to get that kick in the pants that you actually think you're going to get. I don't think this is that kind of team. Any other thoughts on that, Justin? Do you think they're going to stay with Bruce Cassidy in the long run, or do you think this is more of like an audition for him?
I think I'd put it somewhere in the middle. It's definitely an audition, but I don't think they're going to try and go out and find a new coach anytime soon unless a big name gets fired or quits or whatever happens, and then they're able to pick them up. What I thought they should have done at the beginning of the season is I think the Ducks let their coach go or whatever. Forget his name, the big bald guy, and then I think they should have picked him up. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but there's a couple guys at the beginning of the season that they could have picked up and be like, "Thanks, Claude. Thanks for the World Cup. Thanks for coming. We want something different." But to try and say that now, it's wrong place, wrong time. It's too late in the season. Players that are not going to like it.
They're not a Stanley Cup roster. They're not a playoff roster. I think it's more on management, but the issue is management hasn't really come out and said this is a rebuilding year. This is a transition year. They haven't said anything like that, but if you look at the roster, you look at the prospects they have growing, the young players, you can clearly see this is a team in rebuild. They haven't accepted that they need to break down the roster a little bit. It's kind of frustrating to me. The fact that they still think they're going to make the playoffs is frustrating. They could still make it. They could still squeak in, but with the game in hand, the way the schedule works out, it's very unlikely that they do so. And more years of bad hockey here in Boston, and that's unfortunate. But with teams like the Boston Bruins, because you've seen this coming for a couple of years. It's kind of been a train wreck. So that's it for Down the Wire Sports Talk. We'll be back next week. Thanks for joining us. Justin, thank you. And have a great week.